have with us Chhavi Moodgal. She's from the PGP 2004 batch. She's received the Young Alumni Achievers Award 2025 in the Social Sector and Public Service category. Chhavi has spent over 20 years in the financial services industry across investment banking, asset management, entrepreneurship, fundraising through endowment. She is currently the founding CEO of the IIMA Endowment Fund, where she plays a pivotal role in solidifying the institute's standing in thought leadership, research, academic excellence on a global scale. Before joining the endowment fund, she worked with Incred Group, the Scient Capital, Standard Chartered Bank, UBS, and Kotak Mahindra Bank. Congratulations, Chhavi, on winning the award.
Thank you so much.
How does it feel to receive this recognition?
So, first of all, you said young alumni achiever and then you said 20 years of experience. So, that in itself made me feel young. So, thank you so much for that. But this is off to just a joking start. This award is extremely special to me. I know a lot of people, including, senior alums who've got this award in the past, and each of them has been an amazing achiever in their own right. But what is the most gratifying for me personally is that it's actually the recognition of my work for IIM Ahmedabad, which is what is leading to this award. So the category, for which I won is really in the social sector. This big pivot which I did from more mainstream financial services to the impact sector, one wasn't sure really, how successful that would be. So I had all the right intent and I had a lot of support, from the institute, from our board, from the endowment founders and so on and so forth, from you, the alumni office, from faculty. But to make a dream real, one never knew the extent of success one could achieve in it. So life has kind of come back a full circle. And after being a student here and now winning this award in recognition of the work which serves the alma mater is very, very gratifying.
Great. And IIMA Endowment Fund is the first of its kind in an Indian management school. So what inspired you to take on this challenging role of setting up the endowment here?
Yeah. So, the IITs and some other educational institutes were actually systematically raising funds. Even in IIMA, when Professor Ashish Nanda was the director, there was some giving back which happened when Professor Arvind Sahai was the dean at that time. There was a development office. So, there was some culture of giving. But I think the true blue endowment in the sense that we understand it and the numbers which we see for global universities like Harvard, Stanford, which are like billions and billions of dollars, I think that kind of ecosystem, wasn't really there. These things are just absolutely massive globally. And being in finance, I had a lot of exposure to them. In fact, some of the CEOs and CIOs for endowments are really, really innovative. And it's not just on the fundraising side, it's also actually on the asset management side because the endowment gets invested as well. Secondly, in this case, of course, there was a lot of gratitude to IIM Ahmedabad to do it. And so if there should be an IIM which has to do this, it of course has to be IIM Ahmedabad, which is consistently ranked #1 as we all know, but more importantly, it's my alma mater. And professionally, IIMA gave me so much, and also personally, many people know this, but my husband I met on campus. So, my life just transformed completely due to IIMA. So if there's one institute to do it for, it's your own alma mater. And I think the third thing is that when you look at the history of academic institutes in India, like we were at the forefront with Nalanda and Takshashila. And they lasted for so many years. And one of the reasons that they lasted as long as they did is because they had a reserve to dip into. Reserves are useful if there are shocks. Reserves are useful, for example, if fees changes for whatever reason. And for academic institutes, there are only two large sources, right, of actual corpus building. One is these endowments which are coming from philanthropic contributions, and one is, of course, the surplus which the institute generates on its operations, which is largely fee income from different type of programs or products.
Right.
Okay. Even in Nalanda and Takshashila, 1/3 to half was actually coming from donations even at that time. And now those, lasted for long, but look at Oxford and Cambridge, they've lasted for 100 years, sorry, 1,000 years. 1,000 years, and also the US schools such as Harvard and Stanford have lasted for 100 plus years. So IIMA is very, very young. And I think what we wanted is to create a sustainable platform which enables longevity of this institute. And future growth can only come when there is A, capital, but B, also collaborations. So endowment is also about the intangible value of the network or the ecosystem that one is creating. So I think all of that to me was really, really exciting. And then personally, it also leveraged the same skill sets, of fundraising, senior stakeholder management, looking at it from a very good governance perspective. So like EY has been an auditor from day one, for example. But then I was used to that even from my formative investment banking days. So it was leveraging the same skills, but with a very different hat. So all of that really excited me about this opportunity. And I was thrilled when I got the role, and there were some wonderful people, the founders of the endowment who conceived this in discussion, of course, with the board of IIMA, the director and dean, all the senior faculty. So I think this journey is not a one-person show at all, and it wouldn't have started without that support. But I think you always need a catalyst and someone to just help put it all together from an operating perspective. So the founding CEO role was just unique, and very grateful that I took it and got it.
What was the process like, if I ask? Somebody approached you. Whose idea was it?
So they were already thinking about setting up the endowment, and an advertisement just showed up basically on my batch WhatsApp group for the CEO. So that's what triggered the thought. And it was actually at a point of time when I was contemplating change for a variety of reasons. So from my perspective also, the timing was right. And then for all the reasons which I described before, I was excited. And then when I got to know the people who are involved, because, of course, institute stakeholders, director, dean and faculty. But on this side, the founding chairman of our board was Sandeep Singhal, and of Westbridge. And in fact, Westbridge, for example, is a homegrown India fund, but they also had an investment from global endowments. So he knew the value of that in that way as well. The current chairperson of our board is Deep Kalra. This is one of the most successful entrepreneurs which IIMA has ever, produced. So just all this goodwill coming together gave it so much of momentum. So I think that also really excited me.
Interesting. And in the 4 years that you've been there, Endowment Fund has received national and international recognition, including the FinNext Award for Excellence in Market Development. What do you consider the most significant achievement of the fund so far?
So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for this recognition. And, it's not just our recognition, as I said, because this is such a collaborative ecosystem. So all our stakeholders, we're very grateful to them because of which this endowment is a reality. There are many ways to look at achievements. There are, of course, quantitative achievements. So I think in terms of just the sheer momentum of fundraising, the numbers are looking much better. We were around 200, 215 crores before the endowment started. We are upwards of 630 crores now in terms of commitments. We've put in around 210 crores in the bank of IIMA in the last 4 years. This is a very meaningful percentage, by the way, of our expenses of the institute, which means, while institute does generate a surplus, but the endowment is a meaningful contribution in that sense. What's also very exciting is that there was a committee for future direction which IIMA had come up with, as you know, which is a long-term plan for the vision of the institute. And there were some pillars which were identified in terms of the big investments which the institute wants to make. And those investments, of course, some will come from own funds, but I think the institute is also looking at the endowment to help support it. And the fact that we can play such a pivotal role basically in the long-term strategy of the institute, I think is a very big achievement in itself. But over and above all of this, I think for me personally, the most gratifying thing has been that endowment sales for me is personally the hardest thing I've done. Right? Just have a think about it. It's not a product. It's not a service. It's a sheer intangible which you are selling. And also mostly, people in Maslow's hierarchy, because you're not giving a return to anybody, right? This is actually a charitable contribution. People are talking about institution building, legacy building, those kind of concepts. So it's also, people need to be at a certain place in Maslow's hierarchy to be even in the mind frame to have these conversations. So vis-a-vis what I was doing in finance, I think that's been the edge, that I've just really, really had amazing stories from people I've got to know. Alums, individuals, family offices, in some cases even corporates, what they think about impact, what they think about nation building, what is it that excites them about development, and then how do you convince them to convert this into something which comes back concretely to IIMA, because at the end of the day it's all about, this is a meritocracy and performance oriented endowment. So that has been just incredible, and just creating that nexus between the two sets of stakeholders, which is the institute and faculty on one side, and then the donors and the alumni and the corporate world on one side, because sometimes they don't always speak the same language as you'd appreciate. So that bridge, that long-lasting bridge, which creates the ecosystem, I think these are the most gratifying things. And sorry, that was a lot of things I mentioned. So it wasn't one achievement, but many.
And how do you approach engaging IIM's diverse alumni, faculty, corporates, and other stakeholders? Just what you were speaking about. How do you approach and bring them on one page?
Exactly. So, as I said, there's no real playbook for endowments before, but if someone wants to learn, top-class stakeholder management and negotiations, please come work with us, honestly. Look, alumni office and the institute is doing so many formats of engagement anyway. We all engage with alumni in different sets of ways. But I think over here, the endowment's mandate is eventually it should lead to either fundraising or some kind of collaboration which is useful to the institute. Sometimes we're even getting people to write cases or come as guest faculty, etc. So it's not always a financial contribution, it can also be in terms of time.
Right.
But basically it's not just engagement for the sake of engagement. Over time it should ideally lead to, some ways in which the alumni or the corporate is thinking about contributing back to the alma mater. So look, our target audience. We're dealing with the best of the best, right? And so it's always high pressure because some of our alums are the most responsive, they want clarity on everything, etc. So we had to just change our style of being extremely responsive first, right? And it wasn't a clean slate because, they were used to dealing with the institute in a certain way in the past. So we just tried to change it a bit and be extremely available on WhatsApp, not as much only on emails, and just engage with them. The second was hyper customization. So in our major gifts category, because every individual is so unique, when you approach them, you have to find ways of connecting with them. So with Deep, you'll talk about travel. With Sanjeev, you'll talk about what he's done for entrepreneurship. With someone else, it could be about their kids, it could be about their favorite prop. But we do a lot of research before we reach people in those cases. Then with corporates, it's different because you have to align with their CSR vision, what their strategy is, what area they are interested in, and so on and so forth. If it's a batch, then largely you have to appeal as a collective to them. So you have to talk, we use the reunions, which of course Alumni Office helps us in so much. But we meet all of them and try to just give them a greater vision of where the institute is going and how all of them collectively can come, and join that journey. So I think that's hyper customization, and then adapting it to these different sets of donors is the second thing. And then the third thing is stewardship. So, a lot of people even had given money in the past, for example. Now, some of them may or may not know where that money was used, what happened. So, we work very closely with the finance team of IIMA. And then, if it's a center of excellence, we'll work very closely with that center. If it's a chairholder, then we'll work with that faculty. But we do try to keep all donors updated. And this is not just about the donors which came after the endowment was set up, even all the past legacy donors. To the extent we can connect with them, every year we'll send them periodic updates. We'll do periodic events to engage with them. So you're almost creating a new vocabulary of giving, endowments, vision, engagement, which I think was not really done in that manner as much or as systematically before. There were, of course, a lot of seeds which were sown and early signs of success, but I think we've just built upon it with a lot of professionalism and very systematically.
And the fund supports a wide range of initiatives, sustainability, diversity, upskilling, scholarships. So how do you prioritize and select projects for endowment?
So that is not my mandate alone as CEO. I think I'm very guided in that by the board of the endowment. The board of the endowment, just so that the viewers can also listen, is a great amalgamation of the alumni and also the faculty. So of course we have the director, which is currently Professor Bhaskar, and then we have the dean, which is currently Professor Sunil Maheshwari. So they are there in their ex officio capacity. And then you also have some of our key alumni contributors who we call founders of the endowment fund, who are also there. So it's a balanced mix. But let me tell you honestly, I think this is a little bit about what journey the endowment has been on. So in the very beginning, for the first 1 or 2 years, we were taking anything, right? Because you just want to have early wins,
Right.
and you want to kind of build momentum. So we even took money, for example, for art, right? We even took money for a biodiversity project on campus, which actually talks about the water table in Ahmedabad, which was funded by one of our alums through their CSR, right? And at that time, we weren't so clear on exactly where the main focus will lie. Then in 2023, I think, when Professor Bhaskar also joined as director, we had a rethinking on what should be the big 4 pillars in which the endowment should sort of focus for the long term. And now these are well crafted. This is very consistent also with the Committee for Future Direction. It's also in sync with IIMA board strategy for the institute in the long term. And the first is student support, which is through scholarships and awards. The second is for faculty, which could be for, research chairs, or, we've set up grants for case writing and so on and so forth. The third is centers of excellence. And, we have 11 of them, and, in time there's of course scope to do more. And the fourth one is really expansion, which could either be, for example, the Dubai campus coming up, which in future may require capital, or for example, a new school may come up, like School of Public Policy, which has different type of programs. So anything which helps in really long-term future expansion and growth, I think that's the 4 pillars. And now we are very stable in terms of the 4 pillars largely being where we are actually deploying funds or raising funds. Once in a while we get very interesting ideas, of course, like upskilling project actually came up for women entrepreneurs, which is also now funded through our efforts. So we will take them on occasionally, and for that we follow a very systematic process where there's an in-principle approval which, director and dean have to give us. But I think largely it's the 4 pillars.
And now talking about your own experience in IIM, how did that shape your leadership style?
When
and
I was a
approach-
student here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
approach to institute building.
So, leadership for me has been a very evolving journey. So, how I thought about it in the 20s is different from how I thought about it in the 30s, is very different from how I think about it now. But tying it up to what I learned at IIMA, I think one is focus on excellence. So, I think it goes without saying that anything which I want to do or build genuinely should have a DNA of excellence. That's not perfection. A lot of people kind of think it's interchangeable. You're going to make mistakes.
Right.
Failure is absolutely fine. I think excellence is the DNA of self-learning and then trying to do it better the next time. Just so that over time you're able to achieve something which is, far better on productivity, efficiency, outreach, and so on and so forth. The second thing is resilience, which is what I really learned from IIMA. So there are going to be times when the going is tough. And the endowment was also an entrepreneurial journey for me, because while I had the whole ecosystem, the foundation started from scratch. And that legal entity and its setup and its team building generally started from scratch. So sometimes, it's a lonely road, as you would appreciate, and you feel like, oh, the rubber's not hitting the road, or you're not getting results as fast for whatever reason, or there's macroeconomic factors like COVID or something which has just impacted your work, which is out of your control. I think that grit and fortitude and resilience is very important. So how do you wake up in the morning and just show up and find solutions? I think that's there. And third is to relearn and unlearn, right? So I, of course, knew how to deal with stakeholders a certain way, for example, in finance, or as a group chief strategy officer. But here it's different. And that adaptability, agility, I think it comes with the fact that continuous learning is the mantra. So even in the very beginning, when we didn't know how to start endowments, we were very lucky that some of our alums have done so well in academia also. So for example, the Harvard Dean, Shrikant connected me to their endowment office. And someone connected me to NYU Stern. So Raghu spoke to me. And Pradeep Chintagunta is of course on the board. And some of these academics, they've shared the knowledge of at least how globally these endowments are built. And that also played a role in getting this off the ground. So all those three things, I think, just play into the leadership style. And at the end of the day, it's a meritocracy, but it's very, very fair. And hopefully, the team you build also has some fun along the way. I think that's very important.
Nice. So thank you so much, Chhavi, for sharing your thoughts with us, and congratulations once again for the award.
Thank you so much. And to the alumni office, I'm very grateful for all your efforts in this journey.
You're welcome. Thanks.